Elves. Big, scary castles. Huge dudes with clubs. Space jellies. Weird fish person who likes seaweed tacos. Dangerous warthog creatures. Fire-breathing dragons. The world finally taken over by cats. Call it what you may. World building is immersive, both for the makers and viewers. Let's take a fall down this rabbit hole together, shall we? I've been dabbling in world building for a long time now, mostly because it's connected to storytelling, and I deeply love storytelling. I've been doing it since I was 11, maybe earlier, but that's the time I took it seriously. And I find that you can't really separate the two. They're intertwined. Of course, you don't need to create a whole new world for one story. You just need to craft a believable world so that your viewers can connect with your characters. I've also picked up a deep admiration for world building because of the authors and their books that I've read, like C.S. Lewis, J.R.R. Tolkien, and S.D. Smith. Of course, there are many other authors who have created amazing worlds for their characters, but those are the main three I could think of for now. And now I'm finally taking my first step. I'm going to discover a whole new world that's just lying inside of me, and I hope that you will come with me along this journey. I'm hoping to make this small series into 9 episodes, and it's only the beginning, because I'll be focusing on the creatures. Just some parts of them, a kind of starting place. But this journey of world building, I'm planning to make it last a lifetime. So yeah, strap in and get ready. When I first heard about world building, I was immediately interested. I love creating things and making it so that it satisfyingly fits together. My dabbling consisted of taking inspiration from around me. I kept it inside me, quiet, just bubbling and simmering in that pot for a long time. It excited me because it was so golden and new and shining. It was something I could put myself into and show other people, so that they could get to know me without getting to know me in some way. But if I want to do this, I have to realize world building is very complex. And the first question is, where the heckin' goose do I start? Fortunately, I have narrowed it down to first focusing on the species of my world, but there's a lot of that as well. And of course, there's the question of how do I make it original? So it's going to take a lot of thinking. In order to make it a little more simple, I started with what I already have. Like I had said, I had already had inspirations collected and boiling inside of me. So it's a good place to start for now. I made a whole list of fairy tale creatures that I gathered to take inspiration from, to twist and tweak to make my own creatures. It consisted of 28 creatures, but I narrowed it down to 18, then narrowed it down again to 9. That's why I'm planning to make only 9 episodes for this series, focusing on creatures. 1 episode for each creature. Or species, since they are going to be human-like and have consciences like humans. This list consisted of pretty well-known creatures like elves, fauns, dwarves, trolls, fairies, nymphs, that kind of stuff. But today we're going to be focusing on elves. I scoured and searched my old notes and drawings for all the information I could find on what I had collected about elves. And this is what I found. Elves have light hair colors, pointy ears, long necks, they are taller, their fashion is long, flowy clothes, and they have light skin. Sounds pretty normal for an elf. And I go on, saying, men usually don't have beards. Still pretty basic for elves. But then I say, usually their skin is tinted with blue, purple, or green. This was my first twist. And I'm sure someone else out there did this as well, or something similar to it, because it's not that crazy yet, but it's a very good first step. Before we move on, I organized my list of creatures or species into categories, just to make it a little more organized and neat, and so I can properly understand what the creatures should be more like. I have 3 categories: Fae folk, mystical folk, and beasts. Mystical folk are the ones that are closest to humans and not too fantastical. Fae folk are the more friendly ones, like fairies, the soft mermaids, fairy tale kind of things. And beasts, of course, are the more scary ones. My elf-inspired people are part of the mystical folk, because they're not so different from humans. For now, at least. As I said earlier, world building is a tricky fish. And I'm starting to ask myself, how exactly do I keep progressing with the ideas? Well, now I at least have a base of what I know what I want. And I still have some things to keep me going for now. And that's Pinterest boards. While I was planning to make this video and start on my world building journey, I gathered some things on Pinterest. Since I'm still kind of nervous and intimidated to start making new ideas for my elf-inspired people, I decided to go through my Pinterest board because there could be some inspiration there and I could come up with some ideas. It's just so that I get comfortable with world building and getting into my elven people. And of course, there's nothing wrong with taking inspiration in small places. Because my pins were such a mess and everything was all over the place, I kind of dumbed it down or put it into steps so that it could be easier for me as I went through my board. First, I wanted to focus on architecture. As I looked, I found lots of pins that I thought would fit my elf-inspired people that were very pure and tall and slender and dainty as well. In the end, I decided they would have tower-like structures and they would build in ginormous trees. Because I wanted them to be more elegant, I wanted them to be more pure as well. Like, they value purity, so their structures are very white. And next is some cultural items, like instruments. I thought maybe it could be very special to them because the music would be soothing to their ears, since they have large ears. And I was thinking their instruments could be colorful, unlike their architecture. It told of stories, of history and myths, something about their culture and what they've gone through. And they are definitely very harp-inspired. They're slim and they have lots of loops, I imagine. And speaking about ears, I was thinking perhaps my people's ears just kept growing as they aged, and they lived like up to 400, let's say, and it would keep growing as they age. It would start when they're 20, and it would just get longer and longer, so they would have really big ears. Next on the list is appearances, and I'll start with clothes. Obviously, I imagined that their clothes would be silky, but that's not what I thought about as I looked through my board. I found lots of masks, and I decided to include them. Perhaps they wore masks until they reached a certain age. It was masks that symbolized their families. So the masks represented their family's symbols. I imagine they were very cautious in public eye and held themselves very highly. Something else they hold highly is their hair, and I imagine that they grow their hair very, very long. They leave it uncovered and they take very good care of it. So, since they can't do anything really that much with their hair, they decorate their ears instead. All classes would do this. Higher-ups, obviously, with more expensive things like diamonds, special rocks, and the lower ones, the workers, would wear less rare rocks and feathers, just anything they could decorate their ears with. But now that's all I could find from my Pinterest board. I'm still not entirely ready to step out on all alone, so I'm going to do some research about elves, and maybe there I could find more things. So I start researching, and I find elves come from Norse mythology, known as Alfar, described as semi-divine beings associated with fertility. Apparently, like ghosts, they could pass through walls and doors. And similarly to that, like I said, I think my elves hold themselves very highly. They definitely try to look perfect in public eye. And Vikings are really good fighters. That's what Norse people were. And that got me thinking, what if my elves were really, really good fighters? But since they try to keep themselves so pure, maybe there's some specific group, a brotherhood that devote their lives to being good fighters and warriors for their people. Kind of like nuns, they dedicate their lives to something, and they can't marry when they join this brotherhood. But moving deeper into the research, I find that apparently elves played roles as protectors of children. So I figured out that maybe my elf-inspired people valued children very much, and they would never harm a young creature, even if it was another species or even enemies. And this is what I could find about historic elves. But I continue researching a bit about what maybe other people have found out or thought about, so I could take inspiration from that. And I decided that my the elves that did something terrible, that committed crimes, would have their hair cut. But they're only the ones who have committed kind of small crimes, so they can still redeem themselves, and then they can grow back their hair. But there is a punishment for unredeemable elves. Their ears are snipped, so whenever they are seen, they are always known as dishonored and unredeemable. It's definitely a very big and permanent punishment. The notes and research are helping a lot, but I start feeling boxed in. I start thinking about why I got excited for world building. Not the epicness people would gape at, it's something personal. Well, a while ago, when I only started thinking about world building, it was a lot more about that childish wonder I had. I would look around me and see things in the real world that would seem magical, like from the fairy tale worlds we read about. I want my world and my world building to feel cozy, like a childhood. I want my viewers to be able to have a fuzzy, happy feeling after they read about my world or explore it. I want to give something to people, give something that'll matter, not because I want their praise. I think perhaps I've been focusing too much on being cool and being like the great world builders, like J.R.R. Tolkien, and it's been sort of chaining me down. So I think I'm going to just let myself go wild. I think I don't have to have elves specifically, but they could be elf-inspired, of course, because they are, but I think I'll just continue building and continue going, but whichever way I want to. Now I have a known direction to head towards, but getting at that childish wonder and putting it into my world is not so easy. I mean, already I've basically forgotten about that feeling that I started this world building project on. I started focusing on being cool and making things people would gape at. So it's gonna take a little bit of chopping and scrubbing to get that feeling in. Scrubbing? I don't know what I'm saying anymore. Either way, I'll have to take it one step at a time. Finally, I'm finding my footing. I'm starting to enjoy what I come up with, like with the growing ears. Instead of my elf-inspired people aging physically, their ears just grow. And like with their colorful skin, with purples and greens and whatnot. It's starting to feel so much more original. And I suppose people will like it more. But the feeling didn't actually last long. As time went on, the feeling started fading because of some reasons. I took a step back. Clearly, something needed to change before I continued the journey. And taking the break was good. Just taking some time to think. And thinking I did. And thinking helped. It took some time, but eventually I realized something. And it's something I feel like I've realized before, but keep forgetting, considering my ambitions to be out in the world and show my stuff to you guys. And sometimes that ambition clouds over some very important things and a very important person. But before I continue talking about this realization, and sorry, the next thing I did for my elf-inspired people was figure out a name for them. If they're not gonna be elves, I had to figure out what they were, or at least what they were gonna be called. So I went to Google Translate and typed in things that reminded me of my people, like elegant masks and long-eared. It was pretty simple phrases, but I put it through Greek, and doing that, it came out with some pretty interesting translations. So I took those words and kind of created them and twisted them into a name. And eventually I came up with Avitaen people, or Avitaen, Avitaen people. Oh gosh, even I'm struggling with this. That's just one of the names. They're also called Vitayas in groups. And after all of that, I now understand one thing I'll need for this journey, and many more, which is my realization. I realized, as I kind of hinted before, that I was chasing praise from people. I was depending on people to satisfy my needs, and I completely forgot about the most important person in my life, and that's God. I always eventually end up chasing my ambitions instead of trusting in Him, because in the end, I don't get the uniqueness and originality from myself. And no matter how much decoration I put on my world, or how crazy I make things, that's not what makes it special to someone, or the viewers. It's what's given to you. It's what comes from your soul. It doesn't mean all the shiny stuff added to it. And the fact is, in the end, if it's from your soul and if it's really that golden liquid given to you to spill out, in the end, it's going to be that you would be alright if no one ever actually saw it. Because it matters to you, and you were given it to spill over and make. And that's the problem with praise seeking. You make something that wasn't given to you to make, that you never really wanted to. It's just something to make people look at you and to gape in awe at what you make. Of course, it's not bad to love praise. I mean, I love to hear people say they like my art or that I did well. But making something just for that isn't what it's supposed to be. It should be for you, for the feeling and excitement and vision you've been given. That feeling you felt. And sometimes it's hard not to make something that other people have been loving and that you see other people like, because naturally we want other people to like us. And that's completely okay. But it's not enough to keep you going on that journey, because eventually everything would just crumble down since you would just want more and more praise from people. Instead, start building a foundation, committing to build a foundation of loving it and not being too influenced by what's cool for other people and not you. Even if it's not really that original or it's not something crazily new, if it matters to you, if it's given to you to make, people will love it anyway, because nothing external can replicate that internal gift. Perhaps not everyone watching this video is Christian like I am, but I'm still certain that this video is very valuable, and I hope it can help someone out there, even if it's only one person. And now I'm sure you're getting tired of my rambling. Let's end the video, shall we? If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like. And I hope you're as excited like me to go on this journey of world building together. There was a lot that I explained today, but there's even more that I didn't even get to. But I didn't want to make the video too long. And some things are still work in progress. I also have the idea of making a whole freaking short comic series of some of my fantastical creatures. I already have a character representing my Avitaen people. Brains work way too fast. So tell me what you think. Would you like to see a series of short episodes including some of my fantastical creatures and world building? And have any of you ever thought of world building? If so, please let me know what. I'd love to hear it all. And of course, any suggestions for me would be very appreciated. And I hope you stay with me on the journey of this and many more by subscribing perhaps. I'd love to have you in the family as well. And of course, if that's not enough for you, you can always visit my website. The link is in the description. There, I upload every 7 weeks instead of 8. And if you want to see even more gorgeous art, check out my cousin Star's channel. Go show her some love. Thank you so much for keeping me company. See you all again soon.